is the external box. And this is the secondary box. There was a bigger box that was over this one. Here's our power adapter. This is a 230 watt power adapter. You can see right there. Fairly small for how much juice it puts out. Notice that this also comes with like a premium rubber. Also notice the cable is braided, but it's something that other laptop manufacturers are not doing. And that's part of the Razer tax. Some of the stuff that you're paying for that's extra, right? That you don't even realize you're paying for it when you buy the laptop. This thing is over 6 feet long. Power adapter right here is also reversible. So you can plug the laptop in like this or flip it around the other way. The power cable is fairly short. This guy is only probably 4 feet long. Here is the third box. All right, so when you unbox this guy, this is what you got. Right here, you have a Go Green with Razer, our commitment to sustainability. Part of the Razer tax, I guess. You know, all of this packaging is recyclable. Biodegradable airbags, soy ink. Here's the laptop. It is wrapped in this kind of like, but it's kind of like a plasticky material. And then we also have all of these documents right here. All right, thank you for choosing a Razer system. Go to support.razer.com and you can also call this number. Notice that this number is a technical support number just for fixing your laptop, not to handle returns or anything like that. Congratulations, there is no turning back. Everyone knows that it's not just brute force that wins battles, it also requires strategy and agility, blah, 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 blah. But you can read that if you'd like. Blade 14, it's like we got our little quick menu guide here. We got a array microphone, webcam indicator light, built-in camera cover. Some of those are the, again, extra features for the Razer tax, right? Speakers by THX Audio. All right, USB 4 ports, which are in the replacement of the Thunderbolt 4 because they are not Thunderbolt 4 compatible, but USB 4 ports have similar specs to Thunderbolt 4. In terms of its throughput. It just doesn't have the Thunderbolt 4 certification on them. With the appropriate power cord, then you can plug in and turn on the laptop. So you're just plugging it in first. And then the webcam, with the cover, if you see the red over the webcam cover on the laptop, that means the webcam is currently blocked physically. So you can't use Windows Hello or your webcam if you've got the cover, obviously. Nice stickers. If you're into stickers, you could put these on your forehead if you want and be a Razer fanatic. All right, and then we've got our microfiber cloth. Definitely got some fingerprint smudges right here. Super noticeable. So here is the cloth that goes over the keyboard. This trackpad is awesome. Large, it has a nice click to it. You can easily do 4 or 5 finger gestures on it. And because it's glass, it feels really premium. Basic box. Got the Nitro logo out on front, and it's also a pretty simple unpackaging process. There was an external box that was used to ship the laptop. This was not the external box. This is the secondary shell. And we've got our laptop in a foam container there. Got a question about your Acer device? Ask us. So support.acer.com, also the number 1-866-661-7100. That's 4 6s. Nitro 16 setup guide. If you want to really take a look at this, a brown packaging box here, or brown packaging bag. Manufacturer date was March 29th. So we got Planet 9 GG stickers. Then we've got our international traveler's warranty. Last time I delved into this, it was basically like, as long as you're in an internationally supported warranty country, you can usually get warranty support. Even if you're not inside the United States, as long as you bought it when you're in a country that also is supported with a warranty and you travel to the other countries that are supported by a warranty. And then they also have your warranty agreement here. Of course, if you damage the laptop yourself, you're going to be out of luck. It's a 1-year parts and labor. And there's another support number right there. For the United States, 8666-952237. Here is the power brick. So first up, we have the power cable. It's close to 6 feet long, like a full-length power cable. Then we have our power brick. You can see it's a Chicone 330 watt. You're getting a full 330 watts with this RTX 4070 for some reason. I have no clue why. It's never gonna need that much juice. All right, and here is the laptop. Shabam. All right, notice we got this new etching, or I guess plastic paint. This Nitro holographic logo is etched, and then this is a pink purplish paint and a blue paint in an N symbol. So if you flip it, okay, we also have a little cloth thing for the keyboard mouse area. So when you flip this way, now it's an N. It is holographic. It looks pretty cool. No flex, no flex, no flex, no flex, no flex. A little bit of flex up here, just a tiny bit. No flex, no flex. Going over the keyboard. Just a little bit of flex over here in the middle. No flex in the keyboard, very minimal flex. Like one of the most rigid laptops that I've seen to date. This is an all metal top as well, is not very bendy. Flex test going around the sides. Minimal flex, just a little bit. On the keyboard here, we definitely got a bit of moderate flex, I would say. Minimal flex over here again. So, you know, typically you don't put your hands in the middle on the space bar here. So that's, a lot of laptops have this as a weak point. Not much flex in the front here. Going around the left, a little bit of flex. On the top, no flex. Minimal flex here in the middle top. Top right, no flex. Minimal flex along the right, and I did press the power button. This has a little rubber rim edge thing going all the way around the display. Okay, so this helps make it a nice clean shunk down onto the aluminum when it comes down, and it makes it, you know, have a nice little magnetic like down onto it. So, you know, it's like rubberized connection touching all the way around, supporting the display as it connects to the laptop. It makes the laptop feel premium even when you're opening and closing it. Notice the air intakes are very easy. You can see right through them, which is going to help airflow on a chassis like this. There's primarily two air intakes though. There might be air intakes on the keyboard as well, like going through the keys. Another two little grill vents here for air. Or I'm not feeling anything messed up. This keyboard is a lot like the keyboard, all the other Nitro 5s that I've tried recently. I think it's the exact same layout, as a matter of fact, as those other Nitro, like Nitro 5 that has a 16-inch chassis. So very similar. The hinge is, I'd say, a bit looser than I would ideally like. Once you get back into the normal range, it's pretty good. A bit of wobble to it after you let it go, but I'd say it's about average in terms of hinge stiffness. Certainly like strong enough to hold the laptop steady. Now the hinge design, we got two separate hinge connector points here. All right, they raise up and go back. And as long as these are well designed, theoretically, they can last a really long time. The main point of weakness is if there's any kind of disconnect between the swivel and usually the display part. Maybe sometimes they're glued or maybe not screwed in correctly, or that little metal piece or plastic piece breaks. Here we have a USB 4, which has similar specs, at least on paper, to Thunderbolt 4, but it doesn't have Thunderbolt 4 certification. USB-A 3.2, Gen 2, HDMI 2.1, and a Kensington lock port. No ports on the back of the device. On the left side, we have our power adapter port that is reversible, a USB-A 3.2, Gen 2, and then a USB 4, USB-C, and our headset port. Now notice there's only 4 total USBs on here. There is no mini DisplayPort. There's no SD card slot of any kind. You do have DisplayPort 1.4 support on the USB 4s, so you can do high resolution, high display output through those, or use USB 4 docking stations that can help you do, you know, have keyboard and mouse and hook it up to a display and all of that all in one port. And of course, these also have power delivery, so you can power the laptop through the USB-C 4s, but it's not going to be as good as using the official power adapter port. You're going to get full power of the 230 watts going through here, and this is going to be less. I'm not sure the exact specifications rated for powering with USB-C on here, but it's probably at least 60 watts, probably 100 watts or more. This specs lists one USB-A 2.0. Interesting. It also lists one USB 4 with 65 watt power delivery, and then a USB-C with DisplayPort and 65 watt power delivery. HDMI 2.1. On the right side, we have 2 USB-As right here. These are probably 3.2s right here that we are talking about. We also have a couple status indicator lights for charging or sleep mode here. We also have a Kensington lock and an exhaust for the right side. We have our USB-Cs. Notice there is no Thunderbolt 4. Of course, this is a Ryzen laptop. So one of these is USB 4, which has the same theoretical throughput as Thunderbolt 4, but it doesn't have Thunderbolt 4 certification. The other one is just USB 3.1 or 3.2 or whatever that the website was saying. Literally doesn't say whether it's 3.1 or 3.2. It just says slash. HDMI 2.1 here on the back. So if you wanted to use an external monitor like a 4K 120 hertz, you can use this HDMI 120 hertz to do that, or a high refresh rate gaming display. Of course, you got to use a high output HDMI cable as well if you do that, not just any HDMI. Then we've got an Ethernet port here on the right with a bottom facing Ethernet out. So you're gonna have to dig under the laptop and lift up and pull. Then we've got our USB-A. Looks like this is the 2.0. So this is where you want to plug your mouse in or keyboard in for basic throughput, maybe a headphones or something if you're using USB headphones. But yeah, that's our 2.0 port. So low quality port here on the left side. We have a micro SD card slot and a headset combo port as well there. Got 5 total USBs, an HDMI 2.1, and a micro SD card slot, no mini display port, and this is a low quality USB port. The front, of course, no ports here on the front. I would say the ports on this are pretty good. They're not bad. They're not necessarily amazing, but they've got a pretty decent port selection. You're gonna need a specialized screwdriver head. Yeah, it's a T5, so there's 8 total screws. They appear to be all the exact same size. Easy to get this to come up. Just kind of gently wiggling it though. It feels like something is still latched here in the back. There's the internals on the Blade 14. Ooh, look at that. Upgradable SODIMM slots. Notice as well that we have a full-size 2280 SSD here. That's really great to see. That gives us a lot of upgradability options. I love the fact that it's also not soldered for any of the memory. So you're able to take this all the way up to 64 gigs of RAM if you want to. 68 watt-hour battery. Notice our speakers are reverse facing. It looks like there's multiple components to the speakers as well, not just a single component. They have a little sticker here. There it is. Yeah, so this just goes straight back for the power right here. You don't need to flip anything up or loosen anything. You just use a plastic pry tool like this and just pull it back. And now we can, if we wanted to, we can go ahead and take the RAM out. SK Hynix DDR5 5600 RAM. So they're actually running faster RAM, but they're 4800 actually on the motherboard. Okay, so notice that this is a single-sided SSD included in here. Looking at the depth here, there's quite large gaps here. These pads here are quite large. If you took those little pads away, you might be able to fit a double-sided SSD in here, probably no problem. There's almost no space in the entire underside that is not being utilized to the max. Vapor chamber cooling here. The hot thermals are gonna warm up right here in the middle. They're going to travel, the vapor is gonna travel out here to the fan outtakes right here and right here. They don't appear to do much because all of the heat fins are on right here to right here. These are the heat fins, but this middle section doesn't really have anything. A vapor chamber can basically use the full amount of cooling for either the GPU or the CPU completely, because all of the, if it's just the CPU or just the GPU running, then it can, it'll go right to the exhaust either way. And in addition, the nice thing about vapor chamber is it can also cover the VRMs and keep everything cool on the motherboard. You just get a lot more coverage. Good. Let's go ahead and take the laptop apart now. So looks like we just need your typical small Phillips head for taking this laptop apart. Plus we're going to use at least probably one pry tool here. Probably going to need a guitar pick here as well. Yeah, I think they're all the same size, so I don't think you'll have to worry about keeping them organized, I don't think. Here is a 90 watt-hour battery. I'm a little disappointed they didn't put a 100 watt-hour battery in this, because look, we definitely have some space here. They could have fit a 100 watt-hour battery in this chassis almost for sure. And initially, my impressions here are also that there's quite a bit of extra space, like gaps, in this laptop between different things, between some of this tech here. They really didn't maximize the space of the laptop's internals. Given how much extra space there is on this motherboard, I wonder if they could have fit a third M.2 slot, There's so much space around these speakers, they could have put in higher quality, bigger speakers, for example. The speakers here do look a little small. Looks like we have a MediaTek Wi-Fi here. So that's also a more budgety Wi-Fi. You can upgrade that for 20 bucks if you want to, though. It downloaded and worked just fine for me. We got our 2 memory slots right here. So it is SODIMM. We've got a second M.2 slot right here. Let's see here. So the second M.2 goes from here. So it's a full size 2280, and it looks like it would fit a double-sided SSD, no problem. So that's really great. SK Hynix 1RX16 PC5 4800. So this is DDR5 4800 RAM. It's not 5600. And it is SK Hynix, which is one of the most popular brands we've seen so far in 2023. So we've got two primary fans, no third fan anywhere. A lot of laptops this year, like the higher end, like the Strix G16 and some of the other ones, have a third fan for chassis heat, but this one skips that, and it's probably okay. The 4070 and this Ryzen chip shouldn't use too much wattage, making it too hot, and this cooling system looks like it's gonna be just fine. So we've got this dedicated heat pipe on the right. This goes to this exhaust. Then we've got another dedicated heat pipe here, and then we've got another dedicated heat pipe over here. 3 dedicated heat pipes with 2 shared heat pipes going across the rear of the device. So that means that about half the heat generation will be split between the 2 fans, and half of the heat generation will be exclusive to just one side or the other. Now, usually the GPU has a lot more of the heat pipes, and so I'm guessing this is the GPU side over here. But the interesting part is it's kind of hard to tell on this laptop which one's which. Usually there's like VRMs and everything, and this could be the VRMs, and this could be the GPU. I think this is the CPU. I think this is the GPU. That's the heat pipe overview. I think this is going to be sufficient for keeping the system at a reasonable temperature, given the equipment we have inside not being too thermally demanding, but this is certainly not an overkill. It goes. So it's getting faster. There you go. So Windows Hello working really fast and really well. Just know that if Windows Hello is not working, you may have the little cover here. There's a little webcam cover here at the top. You can actually see pretty good hair detail on this webcam. Like, appears to be pretty dang detailed all around. So it's pretty wide angle as well. That is really good quality. Actually, that's far above average for a webcam. I'd say it's a little dark on the exposure. Okay. It is face tracking me. There's not much detail in the hairs. The colors are maybe a little bit bland. Overall, I mean, it'll work just fine, but the camera certainly looks a little soft. There is no camera compatible with Windows Hello, so no Windows Hello support. These arrow keys, I don't love the fat left and right arrow keys. I wish these were half-size arrow keys, so it's a little bit easier to tell where your fingers are. I have gotten a little bit more used to them, having my Blade 18 for 6 months now. The keyboard backlight is very bright. That is off. That is one level of brightness. 3 levels of brightness up. I would say that this level of brightness is about the level of brightness of most gaming laptops. And then we have a whole bunch more levels of brightness to go up in terms of brightness levels. But know that the secondary functions up here, like mute, volume up, down, this is the display button to change your display settings. You've got fast forward and rewind. Fast forward, pause, play, and rewind. And then you also have brightness down, brightness up. And then over here we have keyboard brightness down and up, print screen, and delete/insert, and then our power button here. And if you just tap the power button, nothing happened. Okay, you actually have to hold the power button down for like a half second at least in order for it to register. So just accidentally touching it is not going to be a problem. Notice that the backspace key here is a little bit smaller than your typical backspace key on a Razer keyboard. We have a caps lock light up cap. These are a little bit smaller than your normal keyboard size. I would say that the keyboard in general, yeah, it's just slightly smaller than like my Blade 18 keyboard, for example. So you can see the backlight on the keyboard here. It's not super bright. Like you can see in the studio environment, you can kind of see the colors here. You can see the full quality of the keyboard backlight. Currently, it's in wave mode. So wave mode is basically right to left across the 4 zones. So we got 1 zone, 2 zone, 3 zone, 4 zone. And we also have 3 levels of brightness and off. Starting from the top left, we have mute, volume down and up. And then we have, looks like, I guess that's the lock button, the Windows lock button. Brightness down, brightness up, display. If you want to do like your displays on F7. Microphone mute, airplane mode, trackpad off, keyboard brightness down and up, print screen, which is your crop image screenshot mode basically, insert and delete keys, rewind, pause, play, forward, power button, and a number pad. with full-size arrow keys. I love the functionality of this keyboard. We also have this Nitro button. This is how you launch your NitroSense, which is your application for controlling the whole laptop. And as far as I can tell, pretty much everything is in that one application, which is great. Trackpad, unfortunately, is a plastic trackpad. Really too bad. And you can see that you do get quite a bit of oil buildup for as far as looking on it. Like I basically just use this for a day installing the applications. It clicks a little bit mushier than some of the other ones, but this is definitely one of the features you might skip or not realize that you're not getting as good a quality with this laptop when you go to buy it. It's also not as big of a trackpad as some of the other laptops. Hinge feels really stiff, by the way. Like I move it and it feels really stable and sturdy, even with this Spider 5 Elite on there. So the important thing to keep in mind about this Spider 5 Elite is it does underestimate the color gamut by like 7-8%. That's probably the key thing when looking at the color gamuts here. Sorry, 100% of sRGB, 88% of Adobe RGB, 93% of the P3 color gamut. So that essentially means around 95% Adobe, close to 100% of the P3 color gamut, which is really, really phenomenal colors. It's basically a professional level screen that you can do professional graphic design and video editing work with. 497 nits brightness, that's phenomenal. 980:1 contrast ratio, that is very good. I guess it's good. That's a good contrast, not amazing. Here we go. Let's see what we get on the display. Keep in mind, right, that this laptop display checker underestimates the display quality by, about 7-ish%, 7-8%, whatever. As long as we're within 7-8% of 100% sRGB, they will have held up to the claims. Originally, this laptop claim is 500 nits brightness, 100% sRGB. We are doing 94% sRGB, so that is within the range of 100%. Adobe is at 71, P3 is at 72. So basically right around like 78, 79 for Adobe and P3. Brightness, 477 nits bright at 970:1. So not quite 500 nits. 477 though is pretty dang bright. 18 nits brightness for the low end. That's not really that dark, honestly. And then for our color gamut, 94%, 71, and 72. I think this is obviously not like your high-end graphics editor type of display, but it's excellent for gamers out there that are looking for a bright display in day-to-day life. Like it's very bright, very vibrant, and it's a 16:10 aspect ratio, so 2560 by 1600 resolution. Excellent details. This is gonna make the vast majority of gamers very happy, especially at the $1,349 price. You will rarely ever see a laptop display get this bright under $1,500. Yeah, we got some backlight bleed on this unit, that's for sure. My eyes visually, I'm seeing backlight bleed here, here, and here. This stuff down here is just from my RGB behind me. Visually, I am definitely noticing some backlight bleed up here, here, and here mainly. Razer Synapse is the Razer control software. Inside of here, you can adjust whether you want gaming mode to be enabled or just enable it when you launch a game. Switch the function keys, which are the F1 through 12. You can make this top row either primarily F1, 2, 3, 4, or you can make them multimedia. You can see that under performance tab, there's different tabs up here. We have customize, performance, display, battery, and lighting. Under performance tab, we have three primary power profiles. You got balanced, silence, and custom. Now under balanced, there's some customization. You have auto fans or you have manual fans. And so you could make the fans real quiet, and balanced mode will keep the laptop at a pretty high power level, but it's going to get hot. If you go down low fans with balanced mode, it's going to get warmer. If you go to balanced mode, high fans, you're going to run max fans here. That's going to keep the laptop pretty cool. In general, I would recommend keeping the fans on auto unless you're going to be gaming, and then once you get done gaming, turn them back off of max fans. When you're in the game, you can switch it to manual max fans if you want to have the coolest possible temperatures. Silent mode, there are no customizations. It's just going to try to power limit the CPU and GPU down quite a bit and reduce the fan noise as much as possible. Under custom mode, there are 4 different CPU customizations: low, medium, and high, and boost. For GPU, there's low, medium, and high. There's also a max fan speed mode. This max fan speed mode is only available when you've set CPU to boost and GPU to high. You can basically get maximum possible performance in this mode. This is the best performance mode. If you don't have max fan button checked, then it's on auto. If you want like a nice balance of acoustics, my recommendation is probably just doing balanced and auto. So when we press this, it's gonna cycle between balanced, performance, and turbo, and quiet. When you click any of these, you get a flash. It flashes your system with a different color. Turbo is purple, performance is red, balanced is orange, quiet is blue, light blue. So there's also fan control. You can do auto fans, max fans, or a custom. Either fan, left or right, to be whatever percentage you want it to be. The lighting for the keyboard is also tracked and controlled in here. We have quite a few different modes. So static, you can pick the color, change the color to be whatever you want. Wave, you can change the speed and direction, and it's just like kind of a rainbow color on the keyboard. Shifting is interesting. I'm manually changing the color. I would not want this. This is what epileptic seizure mode or something. Meteor mode, I guess, bounces back and forth, and you can pick the color you want it to use, but you can't use like rainbow. Breathing brings a color, whatever color you want, on and off the laptop. Neon, that looks like it's just a color shift. Zoom, you go in and out of the 4 zones. Twinkling is just flashing at you. What are these lighting profiles? Wave, I think, looks the best in terms of gaming RGB though. For our bass acoustics, let's say it's 43. Let's go ahead and jump into custom mode. So this is starting to ramp the fans just a little bit in the background just to keep air flowing through the system at all times so that the laptop is ready to go for maximum possible performance. 49.6 decibels for the GPU boost mode. That's pretty dang impressive in my book. In this GPU boost mode, keep in mind we're in custom GPU boost. We don't have max fan checked though. Now we're doing 105 watts, 106 watts, 108 watts to the GPU. Our GPU core clock is only 2250, and this is an RTX 4070, but notice that we're occasionally dropping down our wattage and clock speed. Now our GPU temp is 69 degrees Celsius. That's really good. Our CPU temp, 63 degrees. That's phenomenal. Only 17 watts of power going through this Ryzen chip right now, not much, is needed to keep us pumping on TimeSpy with some good frame rate. I will say the one thing is, like, this GPU does keep dropping down the voltages to get a little bit lower boost clock at certain times. It's like it's not maintaining this higher level of boost clock. So if I was to tune this, I would probably tune it, try to lock it to a voltage a little bit below where it, like a little bit below, like in the 90 watt range. And then I would try to overclock it to say 2300 lockstep. Let's turn on max fan mode here. All right. 55.6 decibels. That's lower than average for a max fan laptop. When most gaming laptops go to max fans, usually it's over 56, 57, 58 decibels, somewhere in that range. 70 degrees, 71 degrees. This is maximum fans right now. 68 degrees, 71 degrees on that CPU. Excellent temps for such a thin laptop. So under performance, we'll disable max fans. Ooh, 109 watts to that GPU. Saw that. 75, 77 degrees. We're still spicying up our temps on the GPU. 68 degrees on the CPU, so getting a bit spicier. 74 now on the CPU. We're still not even anywhere close to thermal throttling on the CPU or GPU. We are in GPU boost, CPU boost, or like the maximum CPU, GPU modes right now with auto fans. And we're doing 51.5 decibels approximately. 75 degrees on the GPU, 74 on the CPU, still excellent. Now, if we were to go in here and do low, if we were doing over 100, now we're doing basically capping at 90, and our CPU is doing like 15. So still enough performance to actually play almost all games, no problem. Let's try out balanced mode on auto. 100 watts, 74 degrees Celsius, 66 degrees on the CPU. So 76 on the GPU, 66 on the CPU. Let's see how loud it is. For a laptop that is super, super portable, this is a very quiet gaming system. The one thing I will say about the fan noise is it is a little whistly. And let's do manual fan with low. So this is prioritizing acoustics while still having good performance. The fans are like completely quiet now. The CPU though, still hitting a good temp, 78. These right now are the G14's temps, almost. Very similar to the G14 temps. Yeah, the laptop is basically entirely silent right now. Interesting, so now we're only doing 64 watts up here, 19 watts down here. We are thermal throttling, and so the power is having to come down on the GPU. So our performance has been significantly reduced right now. Let's see what we get when we go to silent mode, all right? 44. Okay, so this is like the fans running just a little bit. It was actually quieter when we did auto mode with no fans. 74 degrees right now. 67 on the CPU. Wow, these are actually pretty good temps. 88 watts going through the GPU, 115, 16 watts going through the CPU. We're getting about 85, 90% of the performance right now of the laptop at only 44 decibels of sound. So there's your fan noise testing, detailed fan noise testing on every mode. So we've got quiet, balanced, performance, and turbo. We're gonna test out those 4 profiles, and then in addition, we're gonna do max fan mode as well. We're gonna start with the loudest and see how quiet we get, all right? It keeps peaking at 64 decibels, so that's what we're gonna call it. Those are extremely loud fans. Let's go ahead and turn off max fans. We'll go to auto fans now. So we're seeing right around the same temperatures. The GPU climbed a little bit in temps. Could also just be heat saturation occurring. Interesting, it goes down to 60 and then it jumps to 64 occasionally. I don't know why, super interesting. So maximum fans is just a little bit higher RPMs, another 150, 200 RPMs higher. We're gonna go down to performance mode, okay? So we're dropping our fan profile down to performance mode. Our GPU voltage is the same. GPU clock went down to 2355, which is 45 less. Our temps have risen a little bit, but wow, those fans are much quieter now. You know, our heat is starting to climb. As our heat climbs, it may cause the fans to ramp up more. So what we've got going on right now is like a pulsating fan going from 49 something decibels up to 54 decibels. As the temperature in the application here, as the temperature spikes on the laptop, we're getting our fans, like if the temperature goes above 75, it looks like we have a fan noise increase. So we're gonna go to balanced mode now. Look at our voltage. Our GPU voltage dropped to 0.875. Our core clocks also dropped to 2100, 2235, 2280. This is certainly being power limited a little bit more to help reduce our temps. Look at our CPU wattage, only 12 watts right here. Super low CPU wattage in balanced mode. Of course, because we're using such low CPU wattage, that is going to impact our CPU gaming performance if you're CPU bound in whatever game you're playing. 66 degrees is very good on the temps here in balanced mode. 73 on the GPU, also very good. And I gotta say, the system is extremely quiet and it has not gotten any loud. It has not gotten loud at all. 44.7 decibels. That is excellent. Let's try quiet mode and see how quiet it is and what kind of performance we get. Okay, so we're doing 85 watts of power, 0.91 volts, 0.89 volts. So still a good amount of voltage going to that GPU. 2100 on the core clock for the GPU, 74 degrees so far. Let's give it a little more time to adjust its temps. Our temps are still very good. 74 degrees, 69 degrees. Just a hair above 42 decibels for quiet mode. That is excellent. You're gonna wanna run it in a more aggressive fan profile, probably at least performance or turbo mode, if you want the full FPS experience, because it's probably gonna be pretty dramatically different FPS. There is THX. There is spatial audio you can enable and disable. And we can try playing some music here and turning some of these settings on and off. Let's go ahead and do that. Okay, so let's turn off spatial audio. Most of the settings didn't make much of a difference. I'm gonna be honest. I was clicking around on them. We'll not do volume leveling though, because that can make music kind of sound trappy. We'll do music and we'll have spatial audio enabled. So the total overall volume is not nearly as loud as my Blade 18. And I felt like when the mids are going by itself and the highs are going by itself, they sound really clear and pretty good. But when the bass came in, it kind of wiped out some of the mid sounds a bit and made them a bit muddled. So, and it also kind of muddled the bass a little too. Overall, like decent-ish for the laptop's size. Very clear mids and highs with some pretty satisfying bass. But in this one, the bass kind of comes in at different times than the mids and highs, so they don't kind of muddle each other as much. Overall, sound pretty good though.
I love you like la 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 la. I love you like la 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 la.
So the bass has a nice thump to it, but it's not as punchy as the Blade 18 or some of the Blade 18 is the #1 speaker system, I think, for gaming laptops so far in 2023. Still not as good as a MacBook Pro, but Blade 14 here being a noticeable step down from the Blade 16, which is a noticeable step down from the Blade 18. The mids and highs, very crisp and clear for the Blade 14. The lows, not as strong or as punchy as I would love. And I would also say overall volume, like the total volume on the whole system is just quite a bit lower than the Blade 16 and 18. I would rate it 8.3. Blade 18 being like a 9.1 or something like that. And a perfect 10 being a MacBook Pro. Inside of the Acer NitroSesne, you've got advanced settings. And inside of here, you have different audio profiles: shooter, RPG, strategy, music, movies, voice, automatic, custom. We're gonna do music. And let's also get our baseline decibels right now in the room. So right around 42 decibels, just a hair under 42 decibels. Let's go ahead and do Peter Spacey Roar. Not very good bass. Everything's pretty muddled. Mids, highs, it's all pretty muddled. Let's move on to Faded A on Half-Life. Maybe this will be a little better. Not much better on this. That is okay-ish. La 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 Love You Like. The way I would describe the speakers are almost no bass, very minimal bass. You get a little bit of bass, but there's not real much, there's almost no thump to it. The mids, especially in Peter Spacey Roar, it's very like kind of all over the place. Like the whole, like the mids, lows, and highs are all being engaged at once. Everything sounds pretty muddled when everything's going on at once. La La Love You Like, though, when it was just the mids, just the vocals going, like it sounded pretty good. It didn't sound bad. Now the total volume also was not particularly high. We did not get, like a lot of laptops get up to like 88 or 87 on the decibel meter. I saw 83 around the highest. So the total volume is not that good. The bass are not that good. Overall speakers are probably like a 6. This is baseline level speaker system in this system. Close to or tied for the worst so far in 2023 that I've used. I would say poor overall speaker system. So I'm going to go to our max fan mode, high, boost. Okay, so out the gate, 4.5 to 4.6 gigahertz across all cores, doing 60 watts, 61 watts of power, 76 degrees on the CPU. Wow. It's amazing that we can do 4.5, 4.6 gigahertz across all cores at such a low wattage and temperature. 15,987 for our first run. CPU package power peaked at 80 degrees Celsius. The most package power we got was 65 watts. 16,122 for our second run. We actually went up a little bit in terms of performance, which is very interesting. 10-minute test, activate, 4.7, 4.9 on some of the cores, 4.69 on some of the other cores. 83 degrees, 80 degrees average, 70 watts of power pull. 90 degrees now on that CPU. 75 watts of power. We just saw 79, now 74 5.9. It's like the VRMs are like warming up and they're all juiced up now and they're ready to go or something. And our temps are also slowly climbing, 93 degrees. I think we're gonna see thermal throttling here eventually if it's gonna keep these wattage pulls as high as this. And there is our first thermal throttle at 96 degrees and bounce back downward. 77.7 watts now. It's slowly creeping up with the wattage. What is this? This is 84.2 watts is now our peak power pull. 79.5 watts being consistent power pull. 17,078. That is almost exactly what the Zephyrus G14 got. Yeah, we're already hitting 95 degrees Celsius. We've seen 95 degrees Celsius be our thermal throttle point pretty much with all the different Ryzen chips out there doing package power right here. 95 watts. Very high amount of package power being pulled through the system. Our temps are very hot. 98 degrees right now. Basically thermal throttling. Doing 4.3 gigahertz across all those cores. 14,000 for our Cinebench R23 score is still pretty good. I think what we got going on in this system is going to be a good amount of power for the vast majority of users out there. If you need to do some video editing, you want to do some whatever you want to do, it's pretty much going to be able to handle it. 14,177. Let's go ahead and do our 10-minute test. Right now we are averaging 94.3 watts, which basically means that whenever it's under load, it's doing 95 watts. Very impressive. It's been very consistently 4.35 gigahertz, basically 4.34, averaging 98 degrees. 14,155, just what I was expecting. Good CPU performance all around. Interesting, only 95 watts, 2265. We ended up getting 11,905. That's great. Let's go ahead and do Time Spy now. We're in turbo mode with max fans enabled. Starting off at 55 degrees Celsius on the GPU, 58 degrees on the CPU, 97 watts, 2415 on the GPU boost clock, so even a little higher than what we were doing before. 4.6 gigahertz on that CPU. 925 millivolts is the node we're on for the GPU. 4.45 gigahertz, 75 watts of power, 80 watts of power now in the CPU test. Pretty good amount of throughput there. Okay, out of the box, 12,383. Very nice. 10,202 for our CPU score. Very nice. let's do our summary, okay? It's time to summarize. So I gave the Blade 15 a mostly negative review, not worth the money unless it goes on big sale or something, mainly because of the display quality was not up to snuff, in my opinion, for the price point of a premium device. This guy, it's got the display quality, it's got the thermals, it's got a high quality webcam, high quality speakers, but not quite the volume or bass that you get if you get a bigger, beefier laptop. I really like this thing. Like, it is so tiny, pocket size compared to my Blade 18. Number one factor for me in terms of why I really like this thing is the thermals on it. Unboxing the laptop was packaged well. It was easy to unbox. It was easy to set up. The software on the laptop itself is easy to use and control the laptop. It was consistent. The quality control on this was excellent. I had no issues on any of the keys or dead pixels or anything like that. The display quality, also really, really good. Like, this thing is so bright, it's basically blowing out my camera on the display because, like, I had to turn the brightness of the laptop display down because it was blowing out my camera. Upgradability, you can upgrade the RAM in this. You can upgrade the SSD likely to a double-sided SSD, full-size 2280 SSD. The internals on it were good. Good layout, very efficient use of space. They maximized what space was available on this laptop. I really appreciate the Razer's design and engineering team. They did a fantastic job with the internals. Taking the bottom of the chassis off is easy, super easy compared to most because of the CNC milled aluminum chassis, which also had superb rigidity and basically no flex in the laptop except for just a little bit here and there. But overall, excellent, super firm and rigid. The keyboard is a little bit more cramped than the larger laptops, and even a little bit more cramped than maybe some of the other 14-inch laptops, but mainly it's just the side keys, the very end keys on both sides are shorter than most laptop keyboards. Other than that, the keyboard layout is pretty good, and I love the functionality of the keyboard. The secondary rows up here, really like that functionality that they have. Like, the multimedia keys at one touch is just really nice. The touchpad is the largest touchpad I think you can get in a 14-inch device. So if you're after a large touchpad that feels good, premium glass touchpad. Windows Hello worked excellently on this machine, and the webcam, again, above average image quality coming from the webcam with good detail on the beard and the hairs, but it was a little bit darker than I would ideally like, at least in terms of exposure. The speakers on this, I gave an 8.3 out of 10, mainly because the volume was not as loud as I would ideally like, and the mids can kind of get muddled with the bass, and the bass wasn't quite as strong as the bigger Razer laptops that I've tested. Cinebench R23, 17,048 for our Cinebench R23 score was excellent. For an 8-core super thin light laptop like this thing is as portable as a 14-inch laptop can pretty much be, and it's still pushed 84 watts of power to the CPU, and it continuously improved its performance during the 10-minute run, which was weird, though it got closer and closer to thermal throttling. Time Spy, we managed to get 11.9K, 11,900 with stock settings. With a quick and dirty overclock, we got 12.2K. With more overclocking, you could probably get 12.3, 12.4, maybe 12.5K. In every game that we tested, we saw excellent thermals and excellent playable performance. Every game was playable and very smooth. The 1% lows were very good in every game that we tested, mainly because I already knew what settings to tweak. If I didn't make those tweaks, you would run into VRAM limitations because there's only 8 gigs of VRAM, and that's just not enough VRAM for ultra settings on textures in 2023 games. In the games that you can actually play QHD games at high resolutions and settings and everything, you can play them at those ultra high settings. But in the games that you can't play them at those ultra high settings, you can just, drop DLSS down typically to balanced or performance mode, and then bam, you're playable. Or maybe worst case scenario, you have to drop the native resolution if DLSS or FSR is not supported. Ports on this were high quality, USB 4, but not Thunderbolt 4. That's probably the biggest downside to the ports. And for a 14-inch device, the ports on this are a little bit above average. We compared this laptop versus all the other 14-inch laptops, and this has comparable ports or better ports than almost every other laptop out there. In web browsing, live streaming, or like streaming some kind of thing like Netflix or YouTube, I would expect right around the 8-9 hour range mark on medium brightness and keyboard backlight off. If you do something more stressful and heavy, like an unoptimized browser like Google Chrome, for example, you're not going to get as good a battery life, probably more like in the 5, 6, maybe even as bad as 4. Big criticism of this laptop, it's that it just doesn't have a 4080 or a 4090 available as a configuration option. And that is going to be a problem for some people that just want to have the most performance in a 14-inch form factor. And if you want that, you got to go with the Zephyrus G14. But if you're okay with the levels of performance we saw today, then yeah, a 4070 still puts out great frame rates at QHD gaming as long as you turn textures down in certain titles. All right, so Acer Nitro 5 summary review. We compared this at the beginning of the review to all the different laptops out there around the $1,500 mark, all the way down to like $970 for our top deal, the Acer Nitro 5, the 3070 with a QHD display. That laptop definitely gives you a bit more bang for the buck from a just raw GPU performance for money spent. That said, this is excellent overall performance for your money. The display is, I think, excellent for the money. We measured it at 477 nits brightness, above 100% sRGB when factoring in my color gamut checker tool, around 78, 79 for Adobe and P3 color gamut, also pretty dang good. And the screen is contrasty enough, looks very good overall. Great for a casual gamer. Not quite as colorful as what you would want for a professional video editor or Photoshopper, unless you're okay with a little bit lower color gamut. You know, it's just not the ideal for that. You could use this for that, being 100% sRGB, but it's not going to be as vibrant or as colorful as the more vibrant and colorful displays out there. Now, other potential competitors, probably the top competitor to this, probably the Legion 5 Pro is going to be a little bit cheaper than this right now, given the price tag. I paid $1349 for my unit when it was on sale a couple weeks ago, but the Legion 5 Pro is currently on sale for $70 less than this and has very similar specs, at least in a lot of ways. I think the Omen 16, Aorus, and Aorus 15X are also pretty good competitors, but this is very competitive, and I think it's a very compelling overall argument. But there are a number of cost-cutting ways in which this laptop is cheaper than some of these other laptops out there. Okay, this does have G-Sync and Advanced Optimus, allowing you to switch the GPU on and off on the fly. I did not mention that point in the review, but I did check that and verify that it does have those features. You can see it has G-Sync right here, G-Sync sticker right there as well. Taking this laptop apart was a little bit difficult getting it to actually pop open, but once we got it popping, it kind of came off. You definitely will want good tools, good plastic pry tools for taking this laptop apart. Upgradability wise, it has two SODIMM slots for your RAM. Nothing is soldered. You can upgrade those to more RAM if you want. It also has an open M.2 slot. It comes with 512 gig SSD in here out the box. Not that much space, so you can add that second SSD if you want to increase your storage. And that would be probably the way to do it, so you don't have to mess with reinstalling Windows or anything, just by adding a second SSD. Quality control of the laptop, I feel like we had no quality or build quality issues. The hinge is sturdy enough, firm enough. It's not the most sturdy hinge though out there, but it's good enough. The flex on the laptop is pretty firm overall, but there is some flexy parts near the middle of the keyboard and the space bar here, but typically you don't press down on that area of the laptop anyway. The ports on this are also pretty dang good. You got 5 total USBs, 2 USB-Cs. One of those is USB 4, which is the high throughput, high bandwidth USB-C port version, and both of those USB-C ports support DisplayPort and 65 watt power delivery charging if you want to carry just a USB-C charger with you instead of the big power brick. And speaking of the power brick, it's a 330 watt, pretty monstrous large one, larger than this laptop really needs, to be honest. So getting that 65 watt power delivery brick would probably be a smart idea if you go with this laptop. The webcam quality was decent, but not super detailed, pretty low resolution, and there's no Windows Hello. The keyboard is a 4-zone RGB keyboard. I can switch this. You can see the 4-zone RGB keyboard here. It's not super bright, but it's bright enough you can see it. I definitely think there's better RGB implementations out there. Not the most expensive keyboard, but the keys feel pretty good. It's a membrane keyboard. The touchpad, on the other hand, is plastic. It doesn't glide very well, and it's not as large as some of the other laptops out there. So I think the touchpad is definitely an area where you're going to get a lot better touchpads on more expensive laptops, and definitely an area where Acer saves some money. Speaker wise are not very good, but they're good when just delivering like mids. Like if you're just getting mids, it's pretty decent actually. And they felt honestly louder in the games. When we were just playing games and I was listening to the audio of the games, the game audio sounded pretty dang good. I don't know. It didn't sound as noticeable. When I'm listening to music and there's a lot of bass, a lot of mids and highs all going off at once, everything becomes muddled and it's not very good. So overall, the speaker quality is like a 6.5, somewhere in that range. It's very low end, but because the fans on this can actually get very quiet, the speakers like when the speakers are going on, because the fans are so quiet in performance mode, inside of the different fan profile modes, I found that balanced mode, actually balanced mode is the right one to do. If you're in balanced mode, the fans are so quiet that you can easily hear the speakers that are on here. So no problem there. And you're still getting very good temps and performance in games, at least in Last of Us. But just know this is not some super high quality speaker system for sure. Definitely a drawback compared to more premium systems out there that have higher quality, bigger speakers. We already talked about the display. Let's talk about Cinebench R23. We got 14,150 in our 10-minute test. Which is good enough for video editing, good enough for gaming, good enough for just about everything you want to do with a CPU, but you're going to do it slower. You're going to do it slower than the higher end CPUs. The new CPUs this year that are similar to this can do closer to 17, 18, 20,000, depending on which CPU it is, because it can go to higher boost clock. This is an older, basically RDNA 3 CPU. The RDNA 4 CPUs can go to higher boost clocks and are a little more power efficient because they're made on a smaller nanometer technology. And then of course, if you go to the Intel or the 16 core 32 thread Ryzen chips, you can obviously get way more CPU performance out there. If you're after just CPU performance, this is not really the laptop for you necessarily, but this is a nice blend of good GPU performance for the money, decent CPU performance for your money, a very good display for your money. It's got like the 3 pillars of a good gaming laptop, and then everything else is just filler. It does it all right. Like it's an all right keyboard, okay, bare bones touchpad. The ports doesn't have Thunderbolt 4 support, but other than that, it's pretty good selection of ports. You know, mini SD card slot, headset adapter. The one downside with the ports, I will say, we only have a USB 2.0 over here, not even 3.2, 2.0. So this is only going to be used for your keyboard or mouse or something very basic for your input and output type of thing here. Last of Us, in the 80 FPS range, QHD resolution, had to turn textures to medium to avoid 1% low stuttering, which is an issue with the RTX 4070. If you don't know, VRAM was only 8 gigs on this unit, which is tough when you're dealing with a QHD resolution, because a lot of the games that are just coming out want more than 8 gigs at QHD resolution with the ultra settings for sure. Many of the new games are going to be that way. So you're gonna have to get used to turning textures down to medium or low, or at least not on ultra, or turning your render resolution for DLSS down to from quality down to balanced or performance, because that also can lower your VRAM utilization. Dying Light 2, Shadow of the Tomb Raider, and Witcher 3 were also very playable, though the Witcher 3, if you have all the ultra settings turned on, only like a little over 60 FPS, which is not really ideal, I think, for that game. You really want closer to 90. So disabling ray tracing gets us closer to 100. This gaming laptop is perfectly playable at QHD resolution as long as you tweak texture settings down and occasionally have to turn off ray tracing in some of the most demanding titles. That's basically what I'll say. It's very good overall gaming performance. We had very good overall temperatures. The fan noise is very loud in max fans, but once you turn it to balanced mode, it was very good fan noise. Performance mode had fan noise going up and down. I would not recommend performance mode from a fan profile perspective. Quiet fans really limits your CPU performance, and balanced mode's already pretty dang quiet. So I would probably just run balanced. Not really much point in quiet mode unless you're like in a library and you really need it to be just super, super quiet. Yes, I can recommend this, and I'm sure someone's gonna wanna know about battery life. This laptop has a Ryzen CPU and as long as you optimize this guy really well, by optimize, I mean don't have applications constantly driving the CPU or GPU to high levels of usage, you should be able to get good battery life, 6 to 8 hours when web browsing at least, maybe even a little more if you're really optimized, because we do have a 90 watt hour battery in here, so that's excellent. So really battery life is going to highly vary depending on how you optimize and use the system. Gaming on this is obviously going to kill the battery life in an hour and a half. Running just office applications with brightness on low and airplane mode, like just doing work or something, you could probably get more than 10 hours of battery life in that type of scenario. So it's just gonna really depend on what and how you use it, what you do on it, and how much power you're using on it in the moment. But yeah, if you don't optimize at all and you're just web browsing, you're probably gonna get like in the 4 to 6 hour range. So that's kind of my thoughts on the Acer Nitro 16. Can I recommend it? Where's the major drawback here? I mean, for $1349, you get the QHD, higher color gamut, higher brightness display that's better than most of the competition out there. You're getting a good thermal system that's keeping this thing very cool. You have the options. I mean, the main reason to not buy this. The main reason to not buy this is that you want a more premium experience. The premium experience you're missing out on this laptop, not a glass touchpad, no Windows Hello. The display brightness is not more than 500 nits, but it's close to 500. It's supposed to be 500 nits, 477 nits. The color gamut on this is not as high as 100% Adobe RGB, which is just makes things not as colorful, you know. And the more premium laptops that cost $500 to $1,000, $2,000 more than this have mini LED displays that are even brighter and more colorful. If you spend like $500, $800 more than this, you can get something with like 500 nits brightness with 100% Adobe RGB, which is a bit better than this. Yeah, and the keyboard, obviously not mechanical, membrane keyboard, and no Thunderbolt 4 support because this is AMD. You spend more money, you get more features. But if having a plastic touchpad, lacking Windows Hello, and this color gamut brightness levels are good for you, there's not too many drawbacks to this laptop. That's my Acer Nitro 16 review. So thank you so much for your time. I'll see you in the next one, and hopefully that'll be soon, early next week.